we are going to do some basic needle felting today. This is a felting needle. Hold it up there so you can see. You can't really tell from looking with the naked eye. There's little barbs here on the end. If you run your finger on it, you can feel them. Almost feels like if you ran your one finger along another and you felt that little ridge from a paper cut. It's kind of how it feels, and it gets a little bit larger in diameter as it goes up. It's a special type of needle. It's really the only type of needle you can use for needle felting. As I noted in the article, some folks had mentioned using a broken hairpin. It does have some ridges on it, so it might work in a pinch. If you have some wool laying around and you have a hairpin, you want to break one off and try it so you can order you some needles, go for it. It's not going to hurt anything. This little end here at the top makes it easier to hold on to, and it also allows it to fit into a little wood handle that comes with it. Depending on the type that you get, it might just hold 2 or 3 needles. It could hold up to 8 or 10. So if you're working on a large project and you have multiple needles, it lets you stab a wider area all at once. That's not good for fine detail work. You'll need to hold a single needle for that. But if you're trying to harden up, say, the belly of a teddy bear, or you're working on a vase, something like that with a more expansive area, it would be a great time saver. I'm using a sponge. I did not buy any kind of fancy or cute needle felting mat. They're awesome, not a thing wrong with them. I've seen people use just packing foam, foam from the Dollar Tree that came out of a seat cushion, an old pillow, whatever you want. I'll often just sit here at the table. I keep a couple needles and some felt that I'm working on in here, and if I get the notion when we're just sitting around watching TV, I can pick it up and just start needle felting. No tech, no noise, craft. It's great. I don't have to worry about annoying my husband watching TV if I've got my embroidery machine going, sewing machine going. They're a little noisy. With this, all you need is some light and hands. So this that I'm working on right now is going to be a duck, and I've been working on it. There's probably an hour's worth of work in here. To make even a simple animal, it's probably going to take you 3 hours. Some people that can do it have been doing it a long time. Might be able to get that down to 2.5. But the more you poke it, the harder it gets. It's so odd, because usually if you poke holes in something, it's going to get very weak. All I have to watch here as I'm poking, I'm making my tripod jiggle. But as you're poking in it, you are agitating the fibers of the wool, and you push in and it pulls them apart and melds them together. You're not pulling anything apart when you take it out. You're just mushing everything together. And I'll be quiet here for a moment. I think you can kind of hear, this one's getting fairly hard. Not hard enough to be done, but you can kind of hear the noise it makes. Hopefully the microphone's picking that up. Imagine taking a hairbrush across carpeting. That'd be what it would sound like. This started out as a ball, and I worked it and made it hard enough to hold the ball shape, and then I pressed my fingers down on it to give it more of a duck body contour. And once I got the shape that I wanted to, I'm used to holding it in my hands. You really should use the mat so you don't poke yourself. I poked myself a lot when I was first starting, and I pay much more attention now. This is not the kind of thing you want to be doing and turn to answer somebody's question, or you'll end up bleeding on your project. Ask me how I know that. So once I got it more to the shape I wanted, so now I'm working on hardening this body shape before I add the head or the legs. And the back of it, before I started poking it, I pulled some of the felt out when it was still loose. Give me a nice little ducktail. Now this is not going to be as thick as the body, obviously, but even a thin spot like this, it's a little more difficult because you got to hold it in place, but you can go ahead and keep poking at it to harden it up because you don't want it to be too floppy. Now even though these are sharp needles and they're very sharp, to our grandchildren, Colt, who's 4, be 5 on Christmas, about half a year away, and Audie is 3.5. I've had them do some needle felting. They get so excited when they come in and see their yaya making a toy that they want to help and have input. And I told them that they were sharp and touched it, let them touch it very gently to feel how sharp it is. So they knew that it would hurt. And Colt poked himself accidentally once and didn't do it again. And Audie did not poke herself at all, at least not yet. So it's a great, if you're a homeschooling homesteader, some kind of a nice handicraft, Charlotte Mason type influence, Waldorf toy. These are considered Waldorf toys because they're natural, no-tech materials. Even young ones like that can help. Depending on their maturity level and their level of interest and engagement in the project. If you're going to be doing it with children, you want to give them something that's already got a little bit of a start to it to hold its shape, because when you're first starting, you're dealing with just a ball of fluff, and it is very difficult not to poke yourself then. So if you give a younger child something like this, it's already started, and they hold it in their hand too. But if you give them a little sponge to put it on, they can much more safely poke it, and they're very excited to be making their own toys. At least my grandkids are. That's how we've started them out. I'm going to show you these two needles, and ouch, poked myself. Hopefully you can see that they're rusty. I didn't store them in properly, and they're not old. These are probably 2 weeks old. What happened is I wanted to use some wool that I had recently collared. I needed that extra collar, and it was not 100% dry. It felt 99.9% dry, and after I used it, I put my needles away. I keep several right here in this container, and the next day I picked them up to needle felt for a little bit, and this is what they look like. The rust could come off, so I'm not going to use them anymore. I don't want rust to end up into a child's toy. But they will rust when exposed to moisture. And they also break easily, as you can see when I'm needle felting. And don't worry if your needle, when you're using a pillow or a sponge or foam, if it goes down into the mat, because it can go all the way through, and you just pull it back out. So it's not going to get stuck. You're not going to felt your object onto the sponge. Unless you want to. You could get a blue sponge, and I could make it a pond, and I could actually work to get this needle felted to make my ducks on a pond. But I'm going straight up and down. That's very important. I didn't realize how important that was at first. I was working on attaching an arm to a teddy bear, the one that you can see in the feature image, and I was going in at an angle like this. And now see, this is getting kind of hard here, but the teddy bear was really hard. The body was almost rock hard. And when I'm attaching the arm at an armpit kind of positioning on the toy and poking in at an angle, that breaks it. And it breaks it a lot more frequently than what you would think. I got this whole pack of needles with a wood handle that holds 3. I think it was $6.99 on Amazon. I wondered why they gave me so many. I gave some to a couple of friends. My friend Sarah, who's also a New Life on the Homestead writer, and my friend Hope, who we barter crafting skills. A lot of times she lives in town, doesn't have access to a lot of the materials or to go out in the woods and find things for projects. So we'll barter some skills back and forth, because she can do everything. Hand embroider, lay concrete slab. She's just a Renaissance woman. But so I gave some to my friends, and I thought it must be a class pack of needles that I bought. No. Now I realize because they break and they get dull. I've not had one get so dull it wouldn't work now, but I've had some get dull enough that I don't use when the project gets really hard. So even if you're punching them in right, they can break when you get a really hard spot. And when it breaks off, you need to make sure you find the tip, because it is very, very sharp. If you lose one inside of your project, you can probably, hopefully, depending how large or how thick it is, kind of feel around for it, needle in the haystack style, and try to push it out with another needle. The ones I've had break have either bounced off and landed on my table, or they've stuck in the wool, and so I've been able to retrieve them. But you don't want to leave one of them in here, because if it's a child's toy or even a display piece, it's going to be so cute, people pick up and handle. Over time, it's going to work its way out, and somebody could get, very hurt. But I'm going to pick up a piece of wool. I dyed this with Kool-Aid. And the teddy bear you saw in the picture, I dyed it with paprika. And the dyeing process is easy, it's fun, it's cheap. Kids can help with that also. And I don't know that it's posted yet, but by the time this article is, it may be. We have an article, New Life on the Homestead, how to clean and dry your wool, which is very important, or it can wet felt while you're washing it. You'll ruin the whole thing. And how to dye your wool. So you'll be able to find those, and eventually they'll be wet felting. So I've got a piece of wool here that easily fits in the side of my hand. This is about the amount of wool that I had when I was making this duck body. So you're going to need a lot more wool than the size you'll end up with, because you want it to harden and thicken up. And if any of you have watched the videos in How to Make a Waldorf Doll article here on New Life on the Homestead, and looked at the videos and the pattern, you're doing it a little bit similar to how we made the Waldorf doll head. I try to keep my hands out of the road here. You're going to fold the edge in a little bit on each side, and then fold it under, and kind of roll it up, filling in as you go. So you create a kind of a round ball shape. Doesn't matter what you're making, you want to start with this kind of shape and work your way out. So now I have a little ball that fits in my hand this size. And it's great to keep them on a mat when they're this size, excuse me, because you're going to have more chances of poking yourself. I've not been able to feel comfortable working that way. My little ball keeps falling apart. The most difficult and the non-enjoyable part is when you're first starting, because it is so soft and it takes a long time to get it hard enough. And you don't want to start working on it and then put it down when it's still in this soft state, because you're going to have a hard time melting it back together and having the rest of the wool hold its shape enough. You'd be like starting from scratch every time. Even though it could take 3 hours to 6 hours for a project, depending how large or ornate it is, you don't have to do it all at once. That's the fun part of it. I sat out in the sun and watched the grandkiddos play the other day, worked on my tan, enjoyed seeing my ducks play in their new coop, and needle felted while I was sitting outside. So it's something you can pick up and set down whenever you want and do it over time. I'm hoping to have a whole set of animals and some fairies to go with a wet felted playscape for Christmas. And it's June 1st right now, so that's a long ways away, so I have plenty of time. Seems like it now. Check back with me when it gets closer to see if I've got them all finished and all the other homemade gifts we make at Christmas. But as you can see, it flops and folds and moves apart a bit, and that's to be expected when it's still in this state. You just want to keep running the needle, stabbing, poking, agitating, whatever phrase that you're most comfortable with, all the way through it on the different sides of your circle until it starts to get some shape. And I'll be quiet for a moment, see if you can hear. Now, as starting to get that same carpet noise as before, just slightly, but it's starting to hold its shape on its own just a little bit on one side. And I'm surely not going to keep you here for the entire hour it may take. I just can't do that on the mat. You really should. You're supposed to. You have less chance of stabbing yourself. I can't pull it off. But I'm not going to keep you here the whole entire time to see how this works, because it will take a while. And you can see the finished product in the teddy bear. And then there's a picture here in the article which shows a weft of wool I started with and turned it into a ball. So it takes a while. Kind of feels like you're weaving in and out. Doesn't matter what directions you go. You want it to be kind of uniform to get it together. I thought at first if I did one side, that's going to get really hard, and then I can hold on to it easier and work another side. But the other side just still stays floppy, and it's not that much easier to hold. It didn't hurt anything. This is the only part that's really not fun, is getting it started. But once you get your initial ball shape, and then you can work on the other pieces you want to add on. You can do an arm that's not mobile. If you're doing a bear or a doll, and just the bear in the picture, the arms aren't mobile. And you can just start with your wool directly from your head or your body. I did mine separate and got them a little bit hard, and then I attached them. It was easier to work with them when they weren't super hard to attach it to the bear. And then I went ahead and stabbed it more to harden it up. I wanted you to see a couple other things here. This is a doll I'm working on. Looks a little bit dirty now from being handled so much. I just used the clean white wool at first to save my collared wool for the end of the project, and I used tea bags to dye my wool to give it kind of a skin tone color. I tried doing some light yellow, but it really didn't come out skin tone. But if you want a darker skin tone, you can use cocoa or something for a brown skin tone. You want a lighter brown, darker brown, you can mix any color you want, but getting more of a peach, Caucasian skin tone was difficult. You can do the doll so it doesn't move at all. But I use the bendy wire here, and it's just pipe cleaner. I didn't buy armature wire. I have some of that in my jewelry kit. And I made a ball with a head, and then I made my little bendy doll body here. And there is an article, and I will see about linking to it here in this article on New Life on the Homestead about how to make Waldorf bendy dolls. And it takes you through a pictorial to how to make this little bendy doll out of, I used 2 pieces of pipe cleaner. I use all of one and part of another, and the one I use part of to make the arms, I save the rest to make other arms later. But if you do it this way, then you can go ahead and make your little arm piece, and then it will give some mobility to it. But when you're doing arms and legs, after you've done your head, and you put your head close to it, and you've got a little loop kind of like this in the back for the head, and you kind of mush that into your head for it's super firm, and then just keep needle felting around it. Now, as you can see, I can fling this thing around. That's how well that the head is attached to it, and then the body is attached to the head. I just used my needle felting needle here, and I started working on the body. Apologizing for my dog. I started working on the body by wrapping some wool around it, and I just kept needle felting it, just like you saw me do with the yellow, until it got hard. And this is very hard. If I push the needle in it much more, I'm going to break a needle. So I started working my wool around it and needle felting, and then to make sure it was secure to the head, I took the needle and I would push it from the body to the head, just like so, all the way around. I did that multiple times from the bottom direction, and I also did it from the top. So I made sure I was locking fibers from the head to the body. And for play with, I mean, it's still a mobile head. It's not going to be bendable like the arms or the legs. Some people, they do the arms are movable, and then they just do a body that kind of comes down because they're putting a dress on it. I'm going to need to make girl dolls, and then like some boy superheroes, knights, cowboys kind of figures. So I need to have some legs, even if they're not super movable, on the boy dolls. Or boy figures, peoples, I guess, is what our youngest grandson calls them. So I will do this. And for hair, you could use yarn. You could make a wig. You could do it however you wanted to do it. I'm sorry, guys. I have noisy dogs today. So you could take your wool and you could put it right, Joby, you could put it right on the top in whatever amount that you wanted to do. And of course, this wouldn't be enough. It would get you started. And then you're just going to needle felt it in. You're just going to keep pushing it in. Now I have to pull this back off because I don't have the right collaring on the skin yet, but I just want to show you how to do it. You're just going to take your needle around and push your head in, push your wool in for the head, and then it will stick. And you could add more on there. You could do a ponytail. You could do whatever you wanted to do. And I'm going to go ahead on this one and show you how to do the eyes. And I'll just make this the back of the head later. But I have some more wool over here that was dyed with Play-Doh, and it's purple, not black. I tend to use black eyes. It's just simpler, and it gives a more old-fashioned little innocent look to it. So I'm going to take just about that much wool, kind of wad it up into a little ball, roll up my fingers here to make somewhat of a ball shape. You could always add more. You can't really pull it back out, just like when you're baking. So start with a small amount. I actually am going to pull out about a quarter of what I just showed you. And then you're going to put it where you want it to go on the face. And just like with the hair, you're going to start pushing it down in. You do a little bit at first and kind of keep moving it with your fingers to give it kind of a round shape or an almond shape, whatever type of shape you want. I'm going to lay this down here. And as you're doing it, just kind of floof it around to keep your roundness going. If you make a mistake and your eyes look a little whopper-jawed, it's okay. Just take a little flesh tone and cover up where any mistakes are. Needle felting can actually be very forgiving, because you can always cover your mistakes as long as you have some more wool in the collar. So I'm just going to mush my eye down in. I prefer this to the plastic doll eyes, but I tell you, I've seen some really cute lifelike animals where they use the plastic black doll safety eyes, and there's a link to them in this article from Amazon, but they sell them everywhere. And then some that are more ornate eyes. They look really cool if you're making a cat. And there's nothing wrong with using the plastic ones. So I'm just going to keep poking and poking. As you can see, I now have an eye, my purple that's attached here, and it looks more like black as I keep going. Got a little fringe here. I'll trim that off. But I would just keep poking this and poking this until I get it down to the smallness, or if I want it raised up a good bit, the dimension that I want. And that will hold it in place. It's a little bit hard to tell because this has been dirty from being handled so much. But there you go. You can see there's an eye starting to take shape. And I would just keep poking it and poking it to get a little smaller, a little rounder. You can always add more to it. You can hand embroider on a little eye. You can see how to do that in the How to Make a Waldorf Dog videos here, New Life on the Homestead. And you can do the same thing with animal noses. So this was going to be an animal. And like I did with the bear, I would add a little extra here. I used kind of a lighter, I did paprika and dye with a lot more paprika in one batch and less in the other to get a little slight shading. And to make something like that, like the nose and the bear, you can get your little poof and put it right here on the front. And then you're going to tack it down all around the base of it, just like so. Just tacking down the very bottom so it's still kind of floofed up. And then you will start in the middle of it, poking this down. And that's going to give you a little bit of a raised edge, more so than the eye. Probably not enough to make a distinctive snout for an animal, and that's okay. Once you get your base going, and you get this hardened down, where it's raised up about maybe 2 or 3 fingernail thicknesses on the face, you just take a little bit more and you add it to your base and you take it down until you get where you want to go. But there's patterns out there that kind of help guide you through it if you want to make a horse or a donkey or a bear, how to bend your armature wire or your pipe cleaner to make certain animal shapes. And it will show you how you take the wool, just like I am now, to get it started. If you're doing a leg or whatever body part that you're doing other than a head, and you're just going to wrap it around, kind of like you do the yarn or embroidery floss in the bendy doll tutorial that we have. And you're going to wrap it around here to give it a little bit of depth. Gives you something to poke a little bit so it's kind of melding together so it actually holds its shape just slightly. And once you get it staying in place, you do not want to poke through the armature wire. You can do that on the pipe cleaner, but you have to do it carefully and kind of just go in between the little fringy pieces here on it, because you start hitting metal more than a couple of times at the tip of your felting needle and you will break it. So you get to hold its shape on here. You're just kind of essentially taping it or tacking it down. And once you get to hold the shape a little bit like that, you go ahead and you add more and you add more, and that gives you enough wool you can actually start the felting process again. So those are some basics, some ideas to get you started. Feel free to check out my Pinterest board for ideas. Look on Etsy. Those shops are awesome. Those artisans are incredible. I'm just not willing to pay $85 for a little duck. And I'm sure the ducks on there might turn out more perfect than mine. But this will be handmade for me, and it will be adorable. I want to show you one more thing here. This is the start of a wet felting mat, and we'll eventually do a wet felting tutorial here on New Life on the Homestead. The kids started playing with it before I was all completed. It's a totally different process. You don't have to do any needle felting. It was my first attempt at one, and it did stay together a lot better than this, but it's been played with and handled, and actually a snake skin from the barn was laid on it, so I had to disinfect it. But these are called model playscapes a lot if you search for them on Pinterest or on Etsy. And so here's my duck pond, right, or the start of one. I need to do a lot more to this now to make it stay together. I want it to look like textured terrain, and some of it's come up a little bit. So if you're a wet felter and you're having difficulty getting things to stay together, once it's dried, you can go ahead and get your felting needle out, and you can dry felt, or needle felt, whichever you want to call it, your pieces together. It kind of works like you're sewing them in together. Even though it was wet felted, once it's dried up, you can use a needle felting. 1, to help you keep your mat together, or 2, to attach animals or features to it. I've seen logs and trees and plants and all kinds of super neat things. But if you wanted to maybe make some rocks, which I'm going to do for this when it's all one huge table-sized play mat, what you do to your dried wet felter project is whatever needle felter project you want to add to it, be it flowers or rocks, you want to raise up something to give it a 3D effect, you do it just like you would when you're attaching body parts with needle felting. You'll take your piece, you'll set it where you want it to go, and then you just start poking around it together at the bottom of my duck to the surface of my pond. If I didn't want to be duck be able to be moved, which I do, but I use it for demonstrative purposes here without tacking it down too tightly. You're just going to go ahead and you're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing till the wool fibers from the object that you want to be attached to the play mat is attached. That only took a couple of seconds. It held just enough to show you, I guess. I didn't really want to attach it, but it grasped onto it and will keep it in place. So once you learn how to needle felt, if you want to branch out into wet felting, you can make playscapes. You could wet felt a scarf and then needle felt on some flowers you've made or whatever. The two different types of crafting are often used together to make clothing, accessories, jewelry, toys, anything that you can think of. So there's the basics of needle felting. I hope you try it out. You have some better tips, trials and errors, epic failure stories that are hilarious, whatever it might be. Please share in our comments section so we can all learn together.